So this next question comes from
Our other favorite.
our second, our not our second favorite, our other favorite 78-year-old
I think he's
client,
76
76.
right now. I'd have to
Um,
double check.
so this is Dennis. We also did an inspirational interview with Dennis. He has been working with Alyssa for quite a while. Had a heart transplant, picked up barbell training after his heart transplant. So if you haven't listened to his inspirational interview, we'll go ahead and link that in the show notes for you guys to listen to. But we were having a little debate before we got onto this podcast recording. I think in our inspirational interview, I feel like Dennis talked about, oh, they both start, their names both start with D's. I just realized that.
Yes.
I believe Dennis did talk about playing some soccer before he picked up. I mean, we know that he was a runner, but before he had his heart transplant, I feel like he mentioned that he would play soccer at some of these like business things that he went to. And like, don't you remember like he said the younger guys came up to him and he's like, him and this other older guy were like, you just have to keep moving, you know? I don't know. I feel like that was his and not Doug's interview.
I'm pulling up all my notes on him. Dennis, I like once Rory started talking about this, I'm like, well, how long were you playing soccer for? Because I know that you're a huge soccer fan.
Yeah.
And I know all about the running, but now I'm
questioning your life.
Questioning my soccer memory. I mean, I know that you're the biggest fan of soccer, so much so that I've had to tell you to pause the game while doing a set
while you're lifting.
So anyways, I think that we were struggling to come to an agreement as to what exactly you're asking in this question.
Exactly.
So if we are off, then tell us we're wrong, and that's not what you were asking. But we're
although
gonna.
This question is not the same question as Doug's, but it's kind of similar in that we're looking at like strength training versus practice. So let's go ahead and read the question. So fitness is a concept that can mean different things depending on the sport and or goals. It is often used as a synonym. Synonym. Gosh, I put cinnamon in JD's oatmeal every morning for endurance in soccer, for example. But more broadly, it can encompass strength, quickness, speed, and explosiveness as well. My question is regarding how to train effectively to increase or maintain quickness. I think barbell training addresses strength most directly, but as I get older and slower, how can I address quickness or speed as effectively as I did the strength aspect? Love this question.
So you're correct, Dennis, that, barbell training and what the training that you're doing more directly addresses strength. And we're not going to train speed while we're doing the barbell lifts.
Well, I just want to interject there. We could train quickness, speed, and explosiveness with something like the power clean or the snatch. But at 76 years old, it's probably not the best movement to include in someone's program.
I agree.
So
with the list you're doing, Dennis, let's.
Yeah. So for, let's say, a sport athlete who's in high school, college, you're struggling with that.
Something happened here.
College or their early 20s, 30s, early 30s. Definitely we can incorporate, especially in like a competitive sports and their strength and conditioning program. That's why they're called strength and conditioning. We would include something like a power clean or a power snatch. Don't need to do the full snatch or the full clean. It's not necessary. There is Olympic weightlifting, which is a sport in and of itself, and that sport is the execution of the full clean, which is incorporated into clean and jerk, and the full snatch, which is just the snatch. So anyway, I wanted to just chime in with, we could use the barbells to train speed and power if we wanted to in a different population.
And I don't, so this is where, Dennis, we got a little hung up on what you were asking. So I said, I thought, and the more I read the question, I'm thinking maybe we're both wrong. Uh, because well, you did mention this, right? I'm wondering if the question has to do with just
Life.
keeping up with your grandkids and life and moving along throughout the house, or if it has to do with speed when it comes to running. I don't know how much running you're doing right now, but I know that you do still do some conditioning and I think that he's mentioned slowing down.
Mhm.
So we could go
Well,
either
let's
way
go
here.
because I think the easier one to answer is like in life, right? So I think that um as you get older, as you're slowing down, I think the key is to continue strength training and continue to do these things. Like, don't change your movement mechanics if you don't need to. Keep playing with your kids on the floor. Keep engaging in taking care of whatever maintenance you do around the house. Um, you know, don't be afraid to get on the floor and, look for something under the bed. That just keep doing everything that you're doing and try not to avoid things just because you're getting a little bit older.
And if
Um,
it takes longer, that's okay. So I know that Dennis also has a lot of yard work to do outside. And I don't know if he's still doing all of it, but Dennis, if you have to do things in smaller bouts or if you have to rest, that's okay.
yeah, and I think Doug kind of struggles with this too. I think that, yes, obviously we don't want to slow down, but that's just a product of getting older, and you are doing all the right things so that you are slowing the rate of your slowing down, if that makes sense. You do your strength training, which will keep you able to do all those things much longer, but it's normal for for you to take more time to do things and not react as fast. But the key is to keep doing those things and keep practicing. Like when they say like use it or lose it, you know? So we need to just keep practicing and keep doing those things, which kind of ties me into the looking at it from a sport perspective. And this is kind of where that soccer conversation came in because one, he did mention soccer. And then that reminded me that I felt like we had this conversation about, playing soccer. But also, he's got grandkids, and I feel like he mentioned wanting to play soccer with his grandkids and keep up with them. So, again, we look at sport performance in two separate components. We look at it as, do you have the strength and conditioning to perform your sport? And then, are you practicing? Right? So, and we can't train the elements of the sport broken down into its pieces and strength train that. Okay. So, strength training does not need to be sport specific because if you were to do something like a weighted throw, for instance, for baseball, right? The baseball is standardized and it's always going to be the same weight. So, the mechanics that you use with a baseball, like a standardized baseball, are going to change if you add weight to it. You're not going to ever throw that ball slowly, you know?
And getting strong enough to throw a heavier baseball is not going to necessarily be beneficial
Right.
to how you're
Yeah.
throwing
So,
the baseball.
right. So you want, but just to clarify, getting stronger will lead to being able to put more power into your throw. So, and the same thing goes for running. The stronger you are, the more power or strength you have in your push off, right? And the stronger you are, the harder you're able to kick a ball. But it's not that you have to kick a heavier ball and strengthen your kick that way. It's that your legs have to get stronger and then you have to practice kicking or throwing or hitting with a stronger body. That's how we transfer strength to sport. And the way that we get quicker is by continuing to practice those skills, refine those skills, and work on our reaction time. So we can work on our reaction time with drills, with actually practicing the sport, and staying active in our practice. If we go 2 or 3 weeks without practice, we're going to be a little rusty. If we go 2 or 3 weeks, we'll see for the sport of barbell training or powerlifting, it's the training and practice are put together because we're strength training the element. That's the only situation where training and practice are the same thing, where we're going to do the movement loaded. But in any other sport, we're not going to do the movement loaded. We're just going to do the movement, practice the movement, break it into its elements, its drills, practice our skills, practice our game, practice participating, but the more time and be consistent with it. But same thing with barbell training, like maybe you had to take a week off and then or maybe you took a month off because you were traveling for work, right? And then we get back under the barbell and sometimes it feels like we got cobwebs in our brain or we're creaky or it's like I forgot how to squat, you get rusty. So that goes to show that the element of practice is important, which goes back to what we were saying in the beginning, which is use it or lose it, right? So as you continue to get older, just keep doing the things that you love to do or that you always do so that you don't get too super rusty, you know?
And, from everything I know about Dennis and the sort of ups and downs he's had with treatments and everything, especially over the last year, he has had interruptions in training, and that affected his barbell training and everything else.
Mhm.
So, he's seen that, but he's also still under the bar and
Mhm.
lifting. And, you know, and like I said, I'm not sure if he is talking about quickness with running. And if that is what you're
Mhm.
talking about, Dennis, the one thing that I always say is it's just like barbell training. You start gradually. So
Mhm.
I have this conversation so many times a year. We weren't doing any running or we weren't doing any speed work or any interval
Mhm.
and running. And then all of a sudden we went to doing 3 miles or like all out sprints. Well, we're not going to start barbell training and test our max.
Right.
So gradually adding it in, gradually increasing the speed and then backing off and really slowly adding that in on days what that you aren't lifting and giving yourself an opportunity to recover. Again, I don't know if that's exactly what he's talking about. It sounds
Mhm.
like maybe he is talking about the life quickness.
Mhm.
But you're definitely in a much better position, Dennis, than most people in your demographic because of what you do.
Mhm.
So,
Absolutely.
and I was just thinking, I think that Dennis and Doug should be
Connect.
friends.
I know.
Yeah, like remotely, you
Yeah.
guys need
I know. They should totally meet.
need like
All
a
right.
Zoom buddy.